I'm not some natural born genius, and when it comes to the LSAT, I found myself making a lot of the same mistakes that I see students making today. And although I've coached thousands of students since 2005, back when I first embarked on my own LSAT journey, I see the same mistakes coming up again and again and again. And so my hope is that by making this video, I'll help a lot of you out there avoid making these mistakes and set you on a better path to LSAT success. I personally started off in the low 150s and I stayed there for quite a while. But ultimately, what ended up being an entire year of beating my head against the wall, I ended up scoring a 175 on test day. And so today in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the mistakes that I made back on my journey and the course corrections I made that helped me ultimately achieve that 175 on test day. So one big mistake I see students make again and again and again that I made myself is obsessively taking practice tests. This is a terrible idea for a number of reasons. One is that, of course, it burns through valuable practice material. And this was especially problematic back when I was studying because there were less than half the number of LSAT prep tests there are today. Today, there are 94 numbered exams. Back when I was studying, there were only 40 something exams. And so you wanted to really conserve those practice tests and make sure that if you were taking a practice test, you were doing so for a good reason, because once you've seen that exam, you can't unsee it and your score will naturally be inflated if you were to take it again. And so you don't want to obsessively take practice tests. You want to make sure that for every test you take, you have a reason for doing so. There is an experiment of some sort that you are running to help you figure out something, whether it's about pacing, whether it's endurance, whether it's a new strategy you want to try out, whatever it is, go in with a plan, go in with an intention of what you want to get out of this timed sitting, because you're putting in your valuable study time and you're using valuable practice material. You want to make sure that you are extracting a key insight from that studying, from that practice test that you can then apply to future practice tests that you're going to take. The good news is that if you do more exams and you review your mistakes in depth, you will start to see and recognize the same methods of reasoning showing up again and again and again. So don't get me wrong, there is a lot of value in doing tons of practice tests, but you want to make sure that in between those practice tests, you are reviewing your mistakes in depth. Every question you get wrong, every question you get right, but guessing got lucky and it could have easily gone the other way, that's going to be another practice question that you want to analyze in depth. Make sure that you have a structured review process in place for all of these practice tests. If you'd like to use mine, I have the Socratic review method framework that I share a bit about here on YouTube, and of course much more inside my LSAT prep courses, whether it's in our live online classes or our small group coaching sessions or one-on-one coaching context. We have templates we can walk you through to help you figure out which mistakes you're making and why. So of course you can avoid making them in the future, because the goal is of course not just to measure yourself from these practice tests, but to actually learn from your mistakes. Another mistake I see students making that I made myself is to use explanations obsessively, to become dependent upon them as a crutch. After every single question, I was checking the answer key, then checking the explanation if I got it wrong. You don't want to do this for a couple of reasons. One is that you want to make sure that you develop some self-control to refrain from looking at the answer key until you've completed the entire exam. Definitely don't stop in the middle of a section, let alone in between sections. You want to wait till the exam is complete, and you don't want to get into the habit of getting the immediate instant feedback, because you're not going to be able to do that on test day, and you got to make it through the exam regardless. You also don't want to become dependent on someone else's thought process, because it's ultimately going to be you walking in there on test day, and you've got to develop your own understanding of the questions and the mistakes in your reasoning so that you can make the course corrections for yourself. And that's why, as part of the Socratic review method framework, I actually have you write out your thought process, and together we analyze what you wrote and why. So we're looking at what was your initial mistaken reasoning and what is your new and improved corrected reasoning upon reflection post-analysis. I personally learned a ton when I wrote my own explanations for over 1,000 LSAT prep test questions. Literally over 1,000 questions. I wrote them for prep tests 46 through 65, every single argument, every single answer choice, all 5 choices, and I learned a ton in the process. I saw that there are patterns in how LSAT designs these questions, but I could not have absorbed all of that analysis, all of those deep insights, had I just been copying someone else's framework, someone else's thought process. I had to do this for myself. And that's why I encourage you to do it for yourself as well. Another mistake I made was using random books I got from friends, random books I found in the bookstore. You don't want to be using LSAT for Dummies or Barron's or Kaplan. You don't want any books containing fake LSAT questions. They are full of mistakes and errors. It turns out it's really hard to write official style LSAT questions. So even if they're unofficial, you want to make sure they are flawless and airtight. And so you want to use real official LSAT questions. I personally learned a ton when I wrote my own fake questions, my own unofficial questions, but I vetted them thoroughly to make sure there were no mistakes at all. I wrote my own games, approximately 10 of them, and I learned a ton in the process, but it's not easy. So don't use the fake questions if you can avoid it. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. I hope you found the video helpful. If you did, please do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to see it. I don't do any advertising for this channel. I rely only on word of mouth to help get the word out, and you are spreading the word really does make a difference. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.